I froze by the window, my pulse hammering in my ears. The men climbed out of the SUV one by one, each face so painfully familiar because I had seen pieces of Daniel in them, his strong jawline, the dark hair, the height. But where Daniel's features had always been softened by kindness, theirs carried sharpness, cold confidence. The oldest stepped forward, silver strands running through his hair, his expression as hard as stone. He rapped his knuckles sharply on the door. "Clara, we know you're in there," he called, his voice carrying that Canadian lilt Daniel sometimes slipped into when he was tired. "We should talk." I stood rooted in place, my hand gripping the doorknob so tightly it hurt. Daniel's warning, "Never go to the farm," rushed back into my head. Had he known this moment would come? The knocking grew more insistent. "Clara Harris," the man called again. "I'm Robert, Daniel's older brother. These are our brothers, Thomas and Andrew. We're here about the farm." Of course they were. They weren't here to comfort me or to grieve the brother they had lost. They were here for the land, for the oil. I backed away from the door, my breath shallow. My eyes flicked to the laptop resting on the desk. The password. Daniel had said it was the date we first met, followed by my maiden name. Maybe it held answers. Maybe it held everything. Ignoring the pounding on the door, I hurried across the room, sat at the desk, and opened the laptop. My fingers trembled as I typed 07091999 for Bennett. The screen lit up instantly. A folder blinked back at me, titled for Clara. I swallowed hard, clicked, and hundreds of video files appeared, each one labeled with a date. The first file's date made my breath catch, 2 weeks after Daniel's funeral. My hand shook as I pressed play. The screen filled with Daniel's face. Not the pale, exhausted version I had last seen in the hospital. No, this was him full of life, eyes bright, skin healthy, smile crooked in that way that always made my heart stumble. "Hello, Clara." His voice came through the speakers, warm, steady, devastating. "If you're watching this, it means you're at the farm, despite all those years I made you promise not to come." He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "I should have known you wouldn't resist. Especially after Carter told you about it." Tears blurred my vision. "You knew me too well," I whispered to the screen. "I've made a video for every day of your first year without me," Daniel continued. "1 year of me keeping you company. 1 year of me telling you everything I should have told you while I was alive." His expression grew serious. Starting with why I bought back the farm I swore I'd never return to. A loud bang rattled the door, pulling me back to reality. The brothers hadn't left. They were still out there, more impatient by the minute. Through the side window, I peeked out. They were pacing the porch, talking among themselves, their voices sharp and angry. The oldest, Robert, suddenly pressed a document against the glass, his palm flat over it. From the distance, I could see the bold letters, "Court Order." "Mrs. Harris," his voice thundered. "We have legal rights here. Open the door." I clutched the laptop closer. Daniel's voice, steady and calm, played on. 3 years ago, he said on the screen, I was diagnosed with a heart condition. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It runs in my family. The doctors gave me 2 to 5 years. He exhaled slowly. "I didn't tell you. I couldn't. I didn't want you watching me count down my own life." Shock tore through me. My hands trembled against the laptop's frame. "Daniel, why didn't you tell me?" I whispered to the empty room. His eyes softened. "I know you're angry right now. You should be. But I wanted our last years to be full, not shadowed by sickness." A lump formed in my throat, grief and fury mixing in a storm I couldn't contain. He had carried this secret alone. He had built this entire world in silence, knowing his time was short. Outside, Robert barked orders to his brothers. One pulled out a phone, his voice sharp as he paced the gravel driveway. I caught fragments through the thin glass. Words like lawyer, estate, valuable. Daniel's face hardened on the screen. "What my brothers don't know," he said firmly, "is that I bought this farm legally years before our father passed. He was broke, desperate, and he sold it to me for next to nothing. I swore him to secrecy. My brothers think they were meant to inherit it, but the truth is, they never had any claim." I covered my mouth with my hand, realization sinking in. This was why they were here. Why Daniel had warned me. The pounding at the door came again, louder this time. Clara. Robert's voice was harsh and patient. If you don't open this door, you'll regret it. I wiped my tears, straightened my back, and whispered to the glowing screen. I'm not giving them anything, Daniel. Not a thing. The knocking stopped abruptly. Through the window, I saw flashing lights approaching up the drive. A police cruiser pulled in, its markings clear. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The brothers stepped back, smug smiles spreading across their faces. Daniel's voice came one last time before the video ended. Kat, no matter what happens, remember, this farm is yours. Don't let them take it. I made sure of it. The screen froze on his smile. And at that exact moment, the police knocked at the door. My husband died, keeping a secret. Until I went to the farm, he always forbade me to visit. For years, those words echoed in my mind like a shadow I could never escape. Never go to the farm, Clara. Promise me. He had said it once with such weight in his voice that it unsettled me. My husband, Daniel, had always been calm, gentle, and measured with his words, but that day his tone carried a rare sharpness. It was the only real demand he had ever made of me in our 24 years together. I had promised, even though I didn't understand why. And I kept that promise year after year, despite the curiosity that gnawed at me whenever his childhood in Canada surfaced in fragments during late-night talks. But then, one morning, Daniel was gone. A heart attack. Quick, brutal, and merciless. At 52, I found myself a widow with a bitter daughter who barely looked at me, and a hollow ache inside me where certainty used to live. 2 weeks later, I sat in a wood-paneled office that smelled faintly of polish and old books. Across from me was Mr. Carter, Daniel's lawyer, a man with gray hair that refused to stay combed down. His voice interrupted the storm of my thoughts. Mrs. Harris, he said softly, there's one final matter. He reached for a box on his desk and pushed it toward me. My fingers trembled as I lifted the lid. Inside rested an antique brass key with a maple leaf keychain and a sealed envelope addressed in Daniel's neat handwriting. I froze. My husband's hand, so precise, so familiar, stared back at me even in death. What is this? I whispered, my throat tight. Mr. Carter adjusted his glasses before replying. Your husband purchased a property in Alberta 3 years ago. According to his instructions, you were only to be told after his passing. The deed has now been transferred into your name, with all taxes prepaid for the next 5 years. I blinked in disbelief. A property in Canada? Daniel never owned anything outside our home. It's called Maplewood Farm, the lawyer explained. Apparently, it was his childhood home. The records show it changed hands over the years, but he repurchased it recently. The farm. The same place he had sworn I should never visit. The place that hardened his face every time it was mentioned. I could hear his voice all over again. Promise me you'll never go there. But now the promise felt like an open wound. There's something else, Mr. Carter said, his tone dropping lower. The land has grown quite valuable. There have already been inquiries. Valuable? It's just a farm, I murmured. He nodded. Yes, but 18 months ago, significant oil deposits were discovered in the area. Your husband declined multiple offers from major companies. My chest tightened. Daniel never mentioned oil, money, or property deals. We'd lived comfortably on his engineering salary and my job teaching high school English, but we were never wealthy. How had he afforded this? And why had he kept it from me? I tore open the envelope with shaking hands. The letter inside was short, written with the same precision he used for everything in life. My dearest Clara, if you're reading this, it means I've left too soon. I'm sorry. There are things I should have told you, but I couldn't bring myself to say them. The farm is yours now. I've spent the last 3 years turning it into something beautiful, something worthy of you. I release you from the promise I made you keep. I want you to go there just once before you decide what to do. On the desk in the main house, you'll find a laptop. The password is the date we met, followed by your maiden name. I love you more than you will ever know. Daniel. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. Even in death, he had left me in riddles full of surprises. I need to see this place, I whispered. more to myself than to Mr. Carter. You should know, he said cautiously. Daniel's brothers in Canada are contesting the will. They claim he was not mentally sound when he repurchased the property. I straightened in my chair. That's absurd. Daniel was the most rational man I've ever known. Nevertheless, the lawyer said, they've filed objections. With the property's new value, things may get complicated. I slipped the key into my pocket, feeling something inside me harden. I'm going to Canada. Today. 2 days later, after hurried flights and a long drive through Alberta's countryside, I stood at iron gates marked Maplewood Farm. Beyond them stretched rolling golden hills, clusters of maple trees dressed in autumn, and in the distance a grand farmhouse with outbuildings freshly painted. This wasn't the broken ruin Daniel had described. This was an estate. The key slid into the lock as though it had been waiting for me. Gravel crunched under my rental car's tires as I drove down the winding driveway, heart pounding with anticipation and fear. What had Daniel been hiding here? What part of him had he never allowed me to see? The farmhouse towered over me, 2 stories tall, its wide porch stretching across the front. Large windows reflected the autumn sky. Nothing about it whispered pain or neglect. This was a place of care, of love, of rebuilding. My hands shook as I turned the key in the door. The lock clicked and the door swung open. I stepped into Daniel's hidden world and gasped. The great room soared high above me, wooden beams stretching like cathedral arches. A stone fireplace loomed, but it wasn't the architecture that stole my breath. Everywhere I looked were horses, not living ones, but paintings of them mid-gallop, sculptures capturing their strength, photographs of majestic breeds. It was my passion. Horses had been my lifelong love. One Daniel had always supported, even if he never quite understood it. And here I stood in what felt like a gallery dedicated to me. My knees weakened, and I clutched the doorway for balance. On the desk by the window sat a silver laptop, a single red rose resting across its lid. Before I could move toward it, tires crunched on the gravel outside. My stomach dropped. Through the window, I saw a black SUV pull up behind my car. 3 men stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, each bearing the unmistakable look of my late husband. His brothers. Their grim expressions made one thing clear. They weren't here to welcome me. The knock from the police wasn't loud, but it carried authority that sent a shiver down my spine. I held my breath, clutching the laptop as if Daniel's voice could still shield me. My legs felt unsteady as I walked to the door. Mrs. Harris. A firm voice called from outside, calm but commanding. It's the RCMP. We need you to open the door, please. Through the window I saw them, 2 officers in uniform, their cruiser idling just behind the black SUV. The Mitchell brothers stood nearby, their smugness growing as if they had summoned the law to back them up. I opened the door cautiously. A young constable with sharp eyes and a neat uniform introduced himself. Constable Lewis. These gentlemen, he gestured toward Daniel's brothers, have presented a court order requesting inspection of this property. They claim it's part of an ongoing estate dispute. Behind him, Robert stepped forward, his tone smooth but laced with condescension. You see, Clara, this is a complicated family matter. Daniel wasn't thinking clearly when he repurchased this property. We're just here to make sure everything is handled fairly. I met his gaze, and for the first time I saw it, the calculation behind his polite mask. He wasn't grieving a brother. He was circling like a predator. Fairly. My voice trembled, but I didn't step back. Fair is respecting Daniel's wishes. He left this to me, not you. Robert smirked, spreading his hands. Come now. You're an outsider. This is Mitchell land. Always has been. You don't even understand what you're sitting on. The insult cut deep, but Daniel's voice echoed in my memory. Don't let them take it. I pulled the blue folder Daniel had mentioned from the desk drawer and held it out to the officer. Constable, before you step inside, I'd like you to review these documents. My husband anticipated this exact situation. The officer took the folder, flipping through the contents. Deeds, notarized statements, bank records, every page meticulously prepared. His neutral expression shifted slightly as he scanned. These appear to be in order, he said finally. He turned to the brothers. Gentlemen, I see no grounds for forcing entry today. This matter belongs in civil court. For the first time, Robert's face cracked. Color rose to his cheeks, his voice snapping sharper than before. This is outrageous. That woman has no right. That woman, I interrupted firmly, my voice steady now, is Daniel Harris's wife, and I have every right. A heavy silence followed, broken only by the crunch of boots on gravel as the officers stepped back. The brothers exchanged glances, their confidence wavering. But in their eyes I caught something darker, resentment, a promise that this wasn't over. They left with stiff movements, retreating to their SUV. The constable offered me a polite nod before following them, leaving me standing in the doorway of the farmhouse, the weight of Daniel's secrets pressing down on me. When the sound of engines faded into the distance, I closed the door and leaned against it, tears burning my eyes. I was alone again in Daniel's hidden world, surrounded by the evidence of his love, his secrecy, his battles. I went back to the laptop, needing more of him, needing answers. Another video waited. With trembling fingers, I pressed play. Daniel's face filled the screen again. His tone was softer this time. If you're still here, Clara, it means they've come. I knew they would. They'll try everything, legal tricks, intimidation, even charm. Don't fall for it. He paused, looking away as if gathering courage. I kept so much from you. Too much. I thought I was protecting you, but I know it must feel like betrayal. I should have told you about my diagnosis. I should have let you in. I wanted you to remember me strong. My tears spilled freely now. I reached out, fingertips brushing the cold glass of the screen, wishing I could feel his warmth one more time. I rebuilt this farm for you, he said, his eyes shining with a mix of pride and sorrow. For your love of horses, for the dreams you set aside to raise our family. Every corner of this place carries you in it. And it's yours, Clara. Yours to keep, yours to protect, or yours to let go, whatever you choose. But know this, you were my purpose. Every moment, every decision, every secret I carried, it was all for you. I sank into the chair, sobbing quietly, his words both a balm and a knife. A sound outside made me jolt upright. Car doors slamming. My chest tightened as I rushed to the window. The black SUV was gone, but another vehicle was pulling in. Sleek, silver, expensive. And when the door opened, I felt my knees go weak. It was my daughter, Emily. Her long dark hair whipped in the autumn wind as she strode confidently toward the porch. She wasn't alone. Walking beside her, smiling like old friends, were the Mitchell brothers. I froze at the window, my breath catching in my throat as I saw her. Emily, my daughter. She slammed her car door with the same stubborn tilt of her chin I had seen since she was a child. But now that stubbornness was directed at me, not for me. And walking at her side were the men who had spent years resenting her father. God, no, I whispered, pressing my palm against the cold glass. Not her too. They approached the porch like they owned it, Robert leading the way with the same air of command that had nearly bullied me into opening the door earlier. Emily walked between them, her arms folded, her expression unreadable. When she looked up at the farmhouse, her eyes widened in awe. The knock this time wasn't angry. It was familiar. My daughter's voice came through, lighter, almost excited. Mom, it's me. Open the door. My chest tightened. For a moment, I wanted to throw the door wide open, to wrap her in my arms and tell her everything. But then I remembered the smug faces standing behind her. Daniel's voice echoed in my memory. They'll target Emily. She's their easiest way in. I swallowed hard and opened the door. Emily rushed in, hugging me quickly before pulling back with a questioning look. Why didn't you tell me about this place? About Dad's farm? Behind her, the brothers stepped inside without waiting for permission. Robert's polite smile returned as though we were hosting a family reunion. Catherine, he said smoothly, I think we all started on the wrong foot yesterday. We should sit down, talk things through properly. Emily turned to me, her eyes sharp. They explained everything, Mom. The farm was always meant to be shared between Dad and his brothers. He bought it back from Grandpa Mitchell, but it was supposed to stay in the family. You can't just keep all of this. Her words struck me like a blow. I stared at her, speechless. Less than a day with them, and already their story was spilling from her mouth. Emily, I said gently, forcing calm into my voice. Your father left this place to me. He made sure the ownership was clear. She crossed her arms tighter, her face flushed. And why would he keep it secret from both of us? Doesn't that seem strange to you? What else was he hiding? My throat tightened. She didn't know about his illness yet. She didn't know about the videos. Daniel had wanted to tell her himself, in his own words. And now, these men were twisting his silence into something ugly. Robert stepped forward, laying a hand on Emily's shoulder with a practiced warmth that made my stomach turn. No one here wants conflict. We're family. We just want what's fair. Catherine can keep a portion, of course, but Emily deserves her share, too. And the rest should remain with us, where it belongs. Fair, I repeated, my voice shaking with restrained fury. You weren't even here when Daniel was alive. You never visited. You never called. And now, suddenly, you show up when there's oil in the ground and a fortune to claim. Alan, the middle brother, opened a leather portfolio with deliberate calm. The mineral rights complicate things, but we've drafted a settlement that honors everyone. 1/3 to you, Catherine. 1/3 to Emily. 1/3 divided between us. It's generous. Emily's eyes lit up. That makes sense, Mom. We don't need all this. We could sell, move on, live comfortably. Why fight? I wanted to scream, to shake her and tell her the truth. But I saw Daniel's face on the laptop screen in my mind, his voice steady. Don't let them take it. I forced a slow breath, my words measured. Emily, sweetheart, your father bought this place for me. Not them. Not anyone else. Me. He was of sound mind, and he left it that way for a reason. Then why the secrecy? David, the youngest, spoke for the first time, his voice quiet but sharp. Why hide it from his wife and daughter? Doesn't that sound irrational? I clenched my fists. Irrational? Daniel had been more rational than all three of them combined. But before I could answer, Emily spoke again, her tone softer now. Mom, please, don't make this harder. Dad kept so many secrets from us already. Maybe his brothers are right. Maybe this was supposed to be theirs, too. Something inside me cracked. My own daughter, manipulated in less than a day, was already doubting her father's intentions. Before I could respond, footsteps echoed from the back of the house. Ellis, the stable manager, appeared in the doorway, his weathered face lined with concern. Everything all right, Mrs. Harris? The brothers stiffened, annoyed at the interruption. Robert's tone sharpened. This is a family matter. Ellis is my employee, I said firmly. He stays. Alan's smile was thin. His employment status is among the assets in dispute. Ellis didn't flinch. Mr. Harris hired me personally. He asked me to protect this place and his wife if anything happened to him. Robert's mask of politeness slipped, his words sharp as glass. You're out of your depth, Catherine. This farm is worth tens of millions. We can settle this cleanly, or we can drag it out until you've lost everything. I looked at them, at my daughter standing between us, her loyalty wavering. My heart ached, but my voice came steady, clear, fueled by a strength I hadn't known I still possessed. You think I'm out of my depth? You're wrong. Daniel prepared me for this. He left me with more than you'll ever understand. They stared at me, startled by the conviction in my tone. Emily's eyes darted between us, uncertainty flickering across her face. For a moment, silence filled the room like a held breath. Then I pointed to the door. You need to leave. Now. Robert's eyes narrowed. This isn't over. No, I said softly, locking eyes with him. It's just beginning. The brothers filed out, their faces dark with unspoken threats. Emily hesitated, torn, before muttering, I'll go with them, Mom. We need to talk more. She kissed my cheek quickly, like she used to when she was a teenager rushing out the door. Please think about their offer. And then she was gone, her car following the SUV down the gravel drive, leaving me standing in the doorway with Ellis at my side, my chest hollow and heavy. Ellis's voice was low, steady. Mrs. Harris, there's something your husband asked me not to share unless absolutely necessary. But I think it's time you knew. I turned to him, exhausted but alert. What is it? He glanced toward the stables, his eyes hardening. It's about what's really hidden here. The air outside had grown colder, the sky painted with streaks of gray as the afternoon leaned into evening. I stood frozen in the doorway, Ellis's words hanging in the air like smoke. It's about what's really hidden here. I turned to him slowly, my hand still trembling from the confrontation with the brothers and Emily's betrayal. Ellis, I whispered, don't speak in riddles. What is it? He looked around as if the walls themselves might be listening, then motioned for me to follow. We walked through the hall, past Daniel's carefully arranged furniture and the quiet hum of the laptop still resting on the desk. He led me out the back door, across the yard where leaves swirled in the cool wind, toward the stables. The moment we entered, the warm, earthy smell of hay and horses wrapped around me. A few chestnut mares peeked out of their stalls, their soft eyes following us as Ellis led me toward the far corner. He stopped at a weathered wooden door secured by a thick padlock. Daniel gave me this key, Ellis said, pulling a small brass key from his pocket. He told me to guard what's inside until he was gone. Said you'd understand why when the time came. My pulse quickened as the padlock clicked open. The door groaned on its hinges, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. A shiver ran through me. A cellar? Not exactly, Ellis replied, his tone grave. Go on. You'll see. I hesitated, then gripped the railing and descended. The air grew cooler, damp, carrying a faint metallic tang. When I reached the bottom, a light flicked on above, bathing the space in a pale glow. My breath caught. It wasn't a cellar. It was a vault. Rows of filing cabinets lined the walls, stacks of bound folders, ledgers, and crates filled with documents. In the center sat a large steel safe, its heavy door standing ajar. Inside lay stacks of contracts, sealed envelopes, and what looked like geological maps. I turned to Ellis, my voice barely audible. What is all this? Daniel's records, he said quietly. Every deal, every offer, every threat. He documented everything about this land. The oil companies tried to buy him out. So did your brothers-in-law. But he refused every single time. Said the farm wasn't about money. It was about you. My chest tightened painfully. I stepped closer, running my fingers over the neat stacks of paper, the familiar handwriting scrawled in margins. Daniel had left a trail, a fortress of evidence. He had been fighting for me in silence, even as his heart failed him. Why didn't he tell me? I asked, tears burning my eyes. Ellis's expression softened. Because he knew you. He knew you'd spend every waking moment worrying. He wanted you to have peace while he handled the storm. But Catherine, the storm is here now, and his brothers won't stop until they've stripped this place clean. I sank into a wooden chair, pressing my hands to my face. Emily, they're already pulling her in. She's young, angry, hurt. She doesn't see what they're doing to her. Ellis crouched in front of me, his weathered hands steady. Then you'll have to show her. Not just tell her, show her the truth. These records, those videos Daniel left you, the evidence in this room, it's your weapon. He built it for you. A sudden noise above made us both jolt. A door slamming. Heavy footsteps. Voices. They're back, Ellis muttered. Damn it. They must have doubled around through the back entrance. My stomach twisted. What do we do? He motioned for silence, switching off the light. Darkness swallowed the room. We stayed still, holding our breath as footsteps echoed above, slow and deliberate. Then Robert's voice rang out, muffled but clear. She's hiding something here. I can feel it. Spread out. I squeezed my eyes shut. They were in the house. Ellis leaned close, whispering, stay here. No matter what. Don't make a sound. He pressed the padlock into my hand. When I go up, wait 10 minutes. If I don't come back, lock the door. Protect what's here. Before I could protest, he climbed the stairs quietly, his frame disappearing into the shadows above. The door creaked shut behind him. I sat in the suffocating dark, clutching the padlock in my sweaty palm, straining to hear through the floorboards. Muffled voices overlapped. Then a loud crash, something breaking. Ellis, what's this? Robert's voice thundered. You think you can keep me out of my own family's property? Your brother bought this land fair and square. Ellis shot back. His tone was sharp, unafraid. He left it to his wife. You have no claim. A loud thud followed. My stomach lurched as if someone had been thrown against the wall. Stay out of this, old man, Thomas growled. You don't know what you're dealing with. Silence. Then heavy footsteps stomped across the floor, farther away this time. A door slammed. My chest rose and fell in rapid bursts as I waited, listening, praying. Minutes dragged on like hours before the cellar door creaked open again. A dim lantern light flickered down the stairs. Ellis appeared, a bruise swelling on his cheek, his shirt torn at the collar. They know something's down here, he said grimly. We don't have much time. I stood, heart hammering. Then we have to be ready. Ellis's eyes met mine, steady and resolute. Are you? I looked around at the files, the safe, the legacy Daniel had left for me. My hands trembled, but my voice didn't. Yes, whatever it takes. The night had fallen by the time Ellis and I secured the cellar again. The air outside the stable was sharp with the bite of early autumn, and the farmhouse loomed like a dark sentinel under the pale glow of the moon. Inside, silence pressed against the walls. I could feel the brothers' presence, even though they had left. Like a sickness lingering in the air, their anger clung to the place. Ellis sat at the kitchen table, nursing the bruise on his cheek with a bag of frozen peas I had found in the freezer. He looked tired but unbroken, his weathered hands steady as ever. I sat across from him, Daniel's laptop glowing between us, its screen frozen on my husband's face from the last video. They'll come back stronger, Ellis said quietly. They don't take defeat well. I know, I whispered, my voice thick. And Emily, the image of my daughter walking away with them replayed in my mind, cutting deeper than any words. She believes them. She thinks I'm the enemy. Ellis leaned forward, his gaze sharp. Then you need to let Daniel speak for himself. Show her the videos. Show her what he wanted her to know. If she hears it from you, she might doubt. But from him, she won't be able to ignore it. My hands trembled as I brushed a tear from my cheek. She won't even listen to me long enough to see. They've poisoned her already. Then you fight harder, Ellis said firmly. You don't let them rewrite Daniel's story. He spent his last years preparing for this, Catherine. He built a shield around you. You have to use it. I nodded, though my chest ached with the weight of it all. Daniel's secrets, his illness, the farm, the brothers circling like vultures, and now my own daughter caught in their net. It was too much for one heart to bear. Ellis's eyes softened. You loved him. He loved you. Don't let anyone tarnish that. Before I could respond, headlights cut across the front windows, sweeping through the house. My breath caught. Another vehicle. I stood quickly, heart hammering. Ellis moved to the window, peering through the curtain. It's her, he said, relief flickering in his voice. Emily. I rushed to the door, flinging it open before she could knock. She stood on the porch, arms wrapped around herself against the chill. Her eyes were red, her face pale as though she had been crying. Mom, she whispered, her voice fragile. Can I come in? I stepped aside, pulling her into the warm glow of the kitchen. She avoided Ellis's gaze, sitting down at the table and staring at her hands. For a long moment, silence stretched between us. Finally, she spoke, her words tumbling out in a rush. They told me Dad was sick, that he didn't know what he was doing when he bought this place, that he hid everything from you because he was confused. I don't know what to believe anymore. My throat tightened. I reached across the table, taking her cold hands into mine. Sweetheart, your father was sick, yes, but not in the way they made it sound. He wasn't confused. He was deliberate. He left this farm to me because he wanted us protected. He left you videos because he wanted you to hear it from him. Not from them. From him. Her eyes flicked up, searching my face. Videos. I nodded toward the laptop. Every day for a year after his death, he recorded something for us. Messages, explanations, confessions. He didn't want you to carry bitterness. He wanted you to know the truth. Emily's lips parted, trembling. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I wanted to wait until you were ready to listen, I whispered. And because I wanted you to choose to believe. Not because I begged you, but because you heard your father's voice with your own ears. Ellis stood and quietly excused himself, giving us space. I opened the laptop and pressed play on the next video. Daniel appeared, his smile weary but warm. Emily, if you're watching this, it means you finally came back to your mother. Thank you. He chuckled softly, shaking his head. I know you. I know how stubborn you can be. You got that from me. But you also got your mother's heart, even if you try to hide it. And I need you to hear this. I wasn't confused when I bought the farm. I wasn't weak. I was fighting for something I believed in for both of you. Emily gasped softly, her hand flying to her mouth. Tears welled in her eyes as Daniel continued, his tone steady and deliberate. This land has history, dark history. My brothers, they don't care about preserving it. They care about profit, about stripping it bare. But you, Emily, you deserve better. Your mother deserves better. That's why I rebuilt it, why I fought for it, why I kept it secret until the time was right. I was protecting you both. Her tears spilled freely now, her shoulders shaking as she leaned closer to the screen. Dad, she whispered, her voice breaking. I wrapped an arm around her, pulling her against me as the video played on. Daniel's voice grew softer. Don't let them convince you I was crazy. I was clear-headed right until the end. And I trusted your mother. She's stronger than she knows. Trust her, Emily. Stand with her. Don't stand against her. The video ended, leaving only the sound of my daughter's sobs filling the kitchen. She buried her face against my shoulder, clinging to me like she hadn't in years. I'm sorry, Mom, she cried. I was so stupid. I missed him, and they said all the right things, and I wanted to believe someone. I stroked her hair, my own tears falling silently. You're not stupid. You're grieving, and they took advantage of that. But now you know the truth, and we'll face them together. Her head lifted, eyes still wet but blazing now with something stronger. Resolve. Yes, together. At that moment, Ellis stepped back into the room, his voice grim. Then you'll need to be ready soon, because they're not done. I just got word from a friend in town. Robert hired a legal team in Calgary. They're filing for immediate injunction on the property. They'll try to freeze everything before the week is out. Emily's grip on my hand tightened. Then we fight, she said fiercely. I looked at her, pride and sorrow mixing in my chest. For the first time since Daniel's death, I didn't feel alone. But deep inside, I knew Ellis was right. This was only the beginning. The next morning broke with a pale light creeping across the horizon, cold and uncertain, as though even the sun hesitated to touch the farm. I hadn't slept. Neither had Emily. We sat together at the kitchen table, Daniel's laptop between us, the screen still glowing faintly with his recorded words. Every now and then Emily would play a part of the video again, her tears soft and steady, her expression shifting between grief, regret, and anger. Ellis moved quietly through the house, making coffee, checking the locks, walking the perimeter as if preparing for battle. The bruise on his cheek had darkened overnight, but he ignored it. Mom, Emily whispered, breaking the silence. What if they really can take it? What if the court believes them? I squeezed her hand, though my own heart trembled with doubt. Then we show the court what your father left us. Every paper, every contract, every video. He knew this would happen. He made sure we'd be ready. Her eyes searched mine. But what if it isn't enough? Before I could answer, Ellis set a mug of steaming coffee in front of me. It'll be enough, he said firmly. But you'll need help. A lawyer who won't flinch at Mitchell money. I frowned. Do you know someone? He hesitated, then nodded. An old friend of Daniel's. Name's Margaret Hale. Sharp as they come. She fought the oil companies once before, and she won. Daniel trusted her. If anyone can stand against the Mitchells, it's her. Call her, I said immediately. Ellis gave a curt nod and left to make the call. Emily and I sat in silence again, listening to the faint hum of the fridge, the quiet creak of the old house settling around us. It felt strange, fragile, like waiting for a storm we couldn't avoid. When Ellis returned, there was a spark of hope in his eyes. She's coming this afternoon. Relief swept over me, but it lasted only a moment, because just then, the sound of tires crunching on gravel reached us. My heart lurched. I went to the window and my stomach dropped. The black SUV again. The brothers. But this time they weren't alone. Two men in expensive suits stepped out behind them, briefcases in hand. Lawyers. Emily's grip tightened on my arm. Mom. I drew a deep breath, forcing steel into my voice. Stay calm. This is what your father prepared us for. The knock at the door came sharp, insistent. I opened it before they could pound again. Robert stood there, his smile cold, his eyes glittering with triumph. Good morning, Catherine, he said smoothly. We thought we'd save you the trouble of going to town. We've brought our lawyers so we can resolve this quickly. Resolve? I repeated, my tone clipped. You mean steal? His smile faltered, but only slightly. We're offering you a chance to avoid humiliation in court. Sign the agreement, take a generous payout, and walk away. Otherwise, he gestured to the lawyers behind him. We'll see you in front of a judge by the end of the week. Emily stepped forward, her chin high. You don't scare us. Robert's brows lifted. Ah, the prodigal daughter has returned. His tone dripped with condescension. I hope your mother hasn't filled your head with fairy tales. Your father was sick. He wasn't thinking straight when he did all this. That's what the court will see. And you, my dear, will be dragged right into it. Emily's eyes burned with fury. My father was more sane than any of you. He built this for us, not for your greed. The youngest brother, David, sneered. You're too young to understand what's at stake. This isn't about greed. It's about legacy. No, I cut in, my voice sharp as a blade. It's about money. And Daniel saw through you years ago. The air grew tense, thick with unspoken threats. Finally, Robert exhaled slowly, his fake smile returning. Very well. We'll let the courts decide. But know this, Catherine, judges can be swayed. Papers can be questioned. And grief makes for a very unreliable witness. He stepped back, gesturing for his brothers and lawyers to follow. See you soon. When they left, slamming the door behind them, Emily burst out. I hate them. I hate how they talk about Dad, like he was weak, like he didn't know what he was doing. I wrapped my arms around her, holding her tightly. That's exactly what they want, sweetheart. To shake us. But we won't let them. Ellis cleared his throat, his voice steady but urgent. Then we need to get every piece of Daniel's evidence ready. Every record from that vault. Every video, every document. If they want war, we'll give it to them. That afternoon, Margaret Hale arrived. She was a tall woman in her 60s, her gray hair cut short, her sharp eyes missing nothing as she stepped into the farmhouse. She shook my hand firmly, then turned to Emily with a warm nod. Daniel spoke highly of you both, she said. I promised him I'd be here if this day came. And here I am. Something in her tone, in her presence, steadied me. For the first time, I felt we weren't fighting alone. We gathered in the dining room, spreading Daniel's papers across the long wooden table. Margaret examined them with quick precision, her lips tightening as she skimmed through contracts, maps, and letters. This is good, she murmured. Very good. He built a wall of evidence. But the brothers will attack your credibility, Catherine. They'll say Daniel hid this from you because he wasn't well. We need to prove otherwise. Emily leaned forward, determination burning in her eyes. Then we show the videos. Dad spoke clearly. He knew exactly what he was doing. Margaret nodded. Yes, if a judge sees those, it'll be hard for them to claim confusion. She looked at me, her expression firm. But you'll need to testify. You'll need to tell the court about Daniel, about his mind, about this farm. Are you ready for that? My hands trembled, but I lifted my chin. I'll do whatever it takes. Margaret gave a small smile. Good. Then let's begin. For hours we worked, gathering, sorting, preparing. Emily helped, her grief giving way to fierce focus. Ellis brought in box after box from the vault. The farmhouse, once silent with secrets, now buzzed with purpose. As dusk fell, Margaret leaned back in her chair, satisfied. We're ready for the first hearing. But make no mistake, they won't fight fair. Be prepared for lies, manipulation, even public humiliation. They'll stop at nothing. Her words lingered in the air long after she left for the night. I stood at the window, staring out at the darkened fields, my reflection pale against the glass. Emily joined me, slipping her hand into mine. We'll win, Mom, she whispered. We have to. I squeezed her hand, my chest tight with equal parts fear and hope. For your father, yes, we have to. But in the pit of my stomach, a chill remained. Because deep down, I knew Robert wasn't bluffing. He had something up his sleeve, something that could tear everything apart. The courthouse in Calgary rose before us like a fortress of glass and stone, its cold facade reflecting the gray morning sky. I clutched Emily's hand as we walked up the steps, Margaret striding confidently beside us, Ellis close behind. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might echo in the cavernous lobby once we stepped inside. The Mitchell brothers were already there. They stood together in dark suits, their expensive lawyers flanking them like soldiers. Robert caught my eye as we passed. His smirk was small, but it carried volumes, arrogance, certainty, and something darker, a quiet promise that he wasn't leaving here defeated. Don't look at him, Margaret murmured at my side. Focus on me, on Emily, on Daniel. That's all that matters. We entered the courtroom, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and old paper. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair pulled into a tight bun, presided at the bench. She glanced at us briefly, then down at the stack of papers before her. The case was called. We took our seats. My palms were damp, my breath shallow, but when Margaret placed her hand gently over mine, I steadied. The Mitchell's lawyer, a tall man with a voice like gravel, rose first. He painted Daniel as unstable, confused, weakened by illness. His words sliced through me like knives. Mr. Harris was not in his right mind when he purchased Maplewood Farm, he declared. He hid it from his wife, his daughter, his entire family. These are not the actions of a sound man. They are the actions of someone clouded by delusion. Emily stiffened beside me. I felt her hand tremble in mine. When it was our turn, Margaret rose, her presence commanding. Daniel Harris was not delusional. He was meticulous. He built records, prepared evidence, and left behind a trail so clear it cannot be ignored. This was not the work of a confused man. It was the work of a man who loved his family and planned for their future. She presented the first folder of deeds, contracts, and notarized documents. Every page bore Daniel's careful handwriting, every signature neat and deliberate. The judge studied them quietly, her expression unreadable. Then Margaret called me to the stand. My legs felt like stone as I walked forward, my pulse loud in my ears. I raised my hand, swore the oath, and sat in the witness chair. My eyes darted briefly to the brothers, their stares sharp, hungry, waiting for me to falter. Mrs. Harris, Margaret began gently, can you describe your husband's state of mind during the years he owned Maplewood Farm? I swallowed hard, then spoke, my voice unsteady at first, but growing stronger. Daniel was deliberate. He was thoughtful. Every decision he made was weighed carefully. He didn't act on whims. He bought that farm knowing exactly what he was doing. He told me, my voice cracked. He told me he was building something for us. For me. Robert's lawyer pounced when it was his turn to cross-examine. And yet he never told you about it until after his death? Doesn't that strike you as odd, Mrs. Harris? I forced myself to meet his gaze. It struck me as Daniel. He carried burdens silently. He thought he was protecting me. That was who he was. Not confused. Not delusional. Protective. He smirked. Or secretive. Perhaps paranoid. My hands clenched in my lap. No. Loving. The room fell quiet. For a moment, I thought I saw the judge's eyes soften. Then Margaret called Emily to the stand. My daughter walked forward, her back straight, her eyes fierce despite the tears that shimmered there. She swore her oath and sat, her hands clasped tightly together. Emily, Margaret said softly, did your father leave you anything after his passing? Yes, Emily whispered. He left me videos, messages for every day after he died. He recorded them himself. In them, he explained why he bought the farm. He was clear. He wasn't confused. He wanted to protect us. Gasps rippled through the courtroom as Margaret held up the laptop. We have those videos ready for review. The judge raised an eyebrow. Proceed. The first video played on a monitor set up before the court. Daniel's face appeared, alive and steady, his voice filling the room. If you're watching this, it means I'm gone. But I want you to know, I was of sound mind when I bought Maplewood Farm. I did it because I wanted my wife and daughter safe, secure, and provided for. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The words hung heavy in the air. The courtroom was utterly silent, all eyes fixed on the screen. Robert shifted in his seat, his jaw tight. His lawyers whispered frantically, clearly caught off guard. When the video ended, Emily's tears spilled freely. "That was my dad," she said, her voice breaking. "He knew what he was doing. And he loved us. That's all there is to it." The judge called for a recess, her expression unreadable as she rose from the bench. As the room emptied, Robert brushed past me, his whisper like venom in my ear. "That video won't save you. You don't know what else Daniel was hiding. But I do." I froze, my blood running cold. His smirk lingered as he walked away, leaving me shaken. Emily touched my arm. "Mom, what did he say?" I forced a smile, though my heart pounded with dread. Nothing that matters. But deep down, I knew it wasn't nothing. He had something. Something dangerous. The recess felt like an eternity. Emily and I sat together on a bench in the hallway, Margaret pacing slowly in front of us, her mind clearly working through the possibilities. Ellis leaned against the wall, his arms folded, his eyes never leaving the Mitchell brothers across the corridor. They stood in a huddle with their lawyers, whispering, stealing glances in our direction. Robert caught my eye once and smiled, that same smug curve of his lips that made my stomach twist. When the judge finally called us back in, I felt a strange heaviness in my chest, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Margaret gave my hand a quick squeeze before leading us back to our table. The Mitchell's lawyer wasted no time. "Your Honor," he said confidently, "before we proceed further, we have new evidence to submit." My heart dropped. This was Robert's something. The lawyer handed a sealed folder to the clerk, who passed it to the judge. She opened it, her sharp eyes scanning the pages slowly, carefully. The silence in the room was unbearable. Then the judge looked up, her brow furrowed. "These documents claim that Mr. Harris was undergoing treatment for a degenerative heart condition," she said. "It includes notes from a physician suggesting cognitive impairment in the months prior to the farm's purchase." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Emily's face paled, her hand gripping mine tightly. "That's not true," she whispered urgently. "Dad was sick, yes, but he wasn't confused." Margaret rose immediately. "Your Honor, we strongly contest the validity of these documents. We request time to verify the source." But Robert's lawyer pressed on. "This shows a pattern: irrational secrecy, impulsive financial decisions, and now medical proof of declining mental capacity. It's clear Mr. Harris was not fit to make such decisions." "Objection!" Margaret snapped, her voice sharp. "These documents conveniently appear today, without prior notice. This is manipulation, not evidence." The judge held up a hand. "I will allow them to be entered into the record, but their validity will be determined in due course." Robert leaned back in his chair, satisfaction glinting in his eyes. I felt sick. I remembered Daniel's letter, his confession about the heart condition. He had been honest about it, but never had I seen him confused or impaired. He had been sharp, determined, even when his body grew weaker. This was a distortion of the truth. During the next break, I paced the hallway, my mind spinning. Emily followed me, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Mom, what if they win? What if the court believes them? They have doctor's notes. They have paper. People believe paper." I stopped, turning to her, cupping her face in my hands. "Listen to me. Your father wasn't crazy. You know that. I know that. He left us everything, videos, records. Ellis, Margaret. We'll prove it. But you have to hold on. Don't let them twist the truth in your heart." Her lips trembled. "I want to believe, Mom. I do. But they make it sound so real." Behind us, Ellis stepped forward quietly. "That's their game. They twist facts until lies sound like truth. But Catherine, there's more in that vault your husband left. I didn't show you everything." I turned sharply. "What do you mean?" He glanced around, lowering his voice. "Daniel kept recordings. Not just for you. He recorded meetings with oil representatives, with his brothers. I thought keeping them hidden was safest, but maybe now is the time. Margaret, overhearing, nodded firmly. If those tapes exist, they could destroy the Mitchells' case. My heart pounded. Another layer of Daniel's secrets, another piece of the puzzle he had built while shielding me from the storm. Then we bring them, I said, my voice steady with a strength I barely recognized as my own. Ellis gave a short nod. I'll retrieve them tonight. They'll regret ever stepping into this fight. Back inside, the proceedings dragged on. The Mitchells' lawyer paraded their evidence, hammering the narrative of Daniel's supposed instability. Each word made my skin crawl, but Margaret countered fiercely, holding the line with Daniel's videos and the mountain of documentation he left behind. When Emily was recalled to the stand, my heart squeezed with pride and fear. She looked so young, but when she spoke, her voice was firm. My father was sick, but he wasn't confused. He knew what he was doing, and he loved us. I know that more than I know anything else. Her words shook, but they carried a power that silenced the courtroom. The judge called for adjournment until the following day. The Mitchells strutted out, smug as ever, but I saw a flicker of unease in Robert's eyes. He knew we weren't broken yet. That night, back at the farmhouse, Ellis disappeared into the cellar. Hours later, he returned with a small lockbox. He set it on the table in front of me, his expression grim but resolute. This is it, he said. The recordings Daniel made. Proof of everything he fought against. Proof of what his brothers really are. My hand shook as I touched the box. Inside lay the truth, waiting. But truth had a cost, and I knew Robert would do anything to keep it buried. Emily leaned close, her voice trembling but fierce. Then tomorrow we show them everything. I looked at her, at Ellis, at the farm Daniel had rebuilt in silence. My grief burned into determination. Yes, tomorrow we end this. But even as I said it, a shadow of doubt lingered. Because if Robert already had forged documents, what else was he willing to do? And deep down, I feared the fight wasn't just about the farm anymore. It was about Daniel's memory itself. The final day of the hearing dawned with a strange stillness, the kind that always comes before a storm. I dressed carefully, not for vanity, but for armor. Emily sat across from me, her hair tied back, her eyes red but fierce with determination. Ellis carried the lockbox under his arm like it contained the world itself, and in truth it did. At the courthouse, the Mitchell brothers swaggered in with their lawyers, their arrogance filling the room before a word was spoken. Robert gave me one last smirk, as though he had already won. When the judge called the session to order, Margaret stood, her voice calm but commanding. Your Honor, we have new evidence, original recordings made by Daniel Harris himself. They are unaltered, time-stamped, and directly relevant to this case. The clerk connected the device to the courtroom monitor. My hands trembled as the screen flickered to life, Daniel's face appearing once more. October 12th, his voice said clearly. Meeting with Robert and Thomas Mitchell. Gasps filled the room as the video shifted, showing Daniel in his office, a hidden recorder capturing every word. Robert's voice came sharp, unmistakable. Sell the farm back to us, Daniel. You know you don't have long. Why let your wife waste it when we can make something of it? Daniel's reply was steady. It's not for sale. It never will be. Catherine deserves this. Emily deserves this. Thomas sneered. You're a fool. Once you're gone, we'll take it anyway. No court will side with her. The video ended abruptly, the sound of the recorder clicking off. The courtroom erupted in whispers. The judge rapped her gavel sharply. Order. Margaret pressed on. We have multiple recordings like this, Your Honor. Each one shows a clear pattern of harassment and coercion by the Mitchell brothers. These men knew exactly what they were doing. And Daniel Harris, despite his illness, was lucid, rational, and deliberate in his decisions. He anticipated this moment. He left behind proof, not only of his love for his family, but of his brother's greed. The brothers' lawyer stammered, demanding the evidence be dismissed, but the judge silenced him with a raised hand. I will review each recording personally, but what I've already heard casts serious doubt on the credibility of the claimants. Robert's face drained of color. For the first time, his certainty cracked. Emily clutched my hand, whispering, We're winning, Mom. The judge leaned forward, her voice firm. Until further notice, Maplewood Farm remains in the sole possession of Catherine Harris. This court recognizes her late husband's actions as intentional, lawful, and binding. The Mitchells' claims are denied, pending a full review of the submitted evidence. The gavel struck. The sound echoed like thunder in my chest. Robert rose in fury, his voice sharp. This isn't over. But this time, I stood too, my voice louder than I knew it could be. Yes, it is. Daniel's voice is louder than yours, and it always will be. The courtroom emptied slowly, reporters whispering, strangers staring. Emily walked beside me, her grip strong, her face glowing with both tears and pride. Ellis followed close behind, carrying the lockbox like a shield. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, pouring light across the courthouse steps. For the first time in weeks, I felt warmth seep into my bones. Emily turned to me, her voice soft but certain. Dad was right. You are stronger than you know. I smiled through my tears, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. And so are you. That evening, back at the farmhouse, we gathered in the great room. The laptop glowed softly, Daniel's recorded face filling the screen once more. His voice, steady and full of love, carried through the quiet. If you've come this far, it means you've fought for this place. Thank you. But more than the farm, thank you for fighting for us, for our family, for our truth. Remember, Catherine, remember, Emily. Strength isn't just in holding on. It's in standing up when others try to knock you down. It's in choosing love over greed. That's the legacy I want to leave. Tears blurred my vision, but they were different now. Not of despair, but of release. Of pride. The farm was safe. My daughter was by my side. Daniel's voice, though gone, had guided us through the storm. As the last video faded to black, I whispered into the quiet, "We'll honor you, Daniel." Always. Emily leaned her head against mine, her whisper steady. Together. And for the first time since his death, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I felt like I was standing, firm, steady, unbroken. Lesson. Love leaves behind more than memories. It leaves strength. And when greed tries to erase truth, it is love, honesty, and unity that endure.